Hello and welcome back to Read Becca for my weekly chatty catch-up on my week in reading, everything I'm currently reading and looking forward to reading, and most importantly, everything I finished reading this week. And the pile is mountainous this week, so let's get started with Agatha Christie's And There Were None. I was a little on the bubble of whether I had actually read this or not, and I think I had not. But it's so foundational to the mystery genre today that it feels very familiar. So yeah, it's a story that follows really all of the tropes of isolated close circle mystery now, where we have these many characters. We're introduced to all of these characters, and as we get to know them, they're all very different people, but they've all been invited kind of secondhand by someone they don't know directly to come to this island that it's been all over the rumor mill, really, so they're excited about being able to go see it. This is this kind of prestigious resort. It's a big deal, or is going to be a big deal, it seems, and so everyone's really happy that they've gotten this opportunity, so they don't question it too much. And that's the start off. And interestingly to me, in modern writing and mysteries, usually what you'll see play out is some character development that uncovers layers to the character, that reveal something to you about who and why they're there, and what they have done. And we don't really get that here. We get an introduction to the characters, we get the reveal of why they're all there, but we don't get any actual character development. We don't slowly get to know any of them. It's pretty much just, they're all there, people start dying, and they react as each person dies. So there's reaction, and then next person dies, pretty much. So the character development is minimal, and I think that worked fine. It's a very slim novel, but I think that Christie showed there that she's so much more of a strategist, even more than an author, because you can see her lining things up and setting up all the pieces for how she wants it to play out, more so than actually telling us a story. She's giving us this breadcrumb trail, if you will. And so I really appreciated that from her writing perspective. I think it was extremely edited and concise and got across exactly what she wanted. So I did like that. I didn't as much like that the last two chapters basically are epilogue of wrapping up everything that's happened. And basically it is the trope of the detective explains to us, but it's just an info dump of, oh, here's everything that happened, here's what we can surmise occurred and why was it these people. And I feel like that should have been, more peppered throughout the story, and that is what the more modern take is. So I don't know if that necessarily was bad in any way. It's just a modern sensibility of, where we're at in storytelling currently. So yeah, I enjoyed this one very much. I don't think I would ever reread it because it's very interesting in that kind of last couple chapters and how things played out and who was in fact the killer. So yeah. So I am happy to have finished And Then There Were None finally. And then a much less successful book was The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. I hated this book, and really, though I hated the couple in the book, I enjoyed the author's writing, and I did finish the story, but effectively we're following these two characters, and the premise is great. They both get stranded in an elevator during a power outage and kind of end up having to chat. Alexa is the woman. She's on the way to see her sister, who has just made partner at a law firm, and so she's ready to celebrate, and she has wine and cheese basically in her bag. And the guy, Drew, is a pediatrician who's just in town for a wedding. And so naturally, as the title implies, they agree to fake date because it's his ex's wedding that he's been invited to. However, he's kind of a jerk and doesn't do girlfriends. Like, he repeatedly says this. He's not overtly rude about things, but he's just blunt in a way that is off-putting, and I'm happily very blunt, but he seems immature. So they share the wine and cheese while they're waiting and everything, and they're charmed by each other. and don't really think through the technicalities of this. And one of the major technicalities is the fact that Alexis is going to be one of the only people of color at this wedding. So she's surrounded by very, very white people, and Drew has not even considered that as an aspect. So that's something that comes up throughout the book, and again, is something I think was very well done here. So I think those are my two main well done elements. The writing was also good. So writing, the meet cute, and the handling of race were all really good. But the couple were awful. So I guess spoiler, I mean, I don't know how it's spoiler, but literally they're not a couple till the epilogue. They don't actually get together. We see, because they live at opposite ends of California, they're long distance, they have this fake dating thing. Drew will not actually date anyone. He doesn't want a commitment. And they're both very wrapped up in kind of high power careers. As I said, he's a pediatrician and she works for the mayor's office and is very influential and up and coming in her role there. And so she also dismisses the idea that this could be anything. So they both are so resistant to this actually being a relationship that they spend the entire book waffling back and forth, going on weekend visits to each other occasionally, having these wonderful whirlwind weekends together, where they're just completely caught up, but not actually discussing having a relationship in any way. And then the in-between, which is the majority of the book, is miserable. It's them having a series of breakups, more or less, when they're not actually together. They just are fighting and conflict constantly. So I didn't like that. So this was not the couple for me, I think, but it did reaffirm that I do want to read more from Jasmine Guillory, most likely. I think another couple would probably suit me a lot better. So ultimately, yeah, I think this was an okay book, but I really hated reading it. Then one that I loved was Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. So this is the second book in a trilogy, and I've already picked up the third, so I'm ready to dive into that one soon. I absolutely adored this. I can't talk too much about the actual plot, but as you can see, we've got this very distinct figure, and the environment of this setting. So we've been in a sort of Italian-based, like Venice almost, setting, high fantasy setting for this series. And in the first book, we were learning a lot about magic, that the magic of this world is scribing, which is kind of a standard rune-based magic. And we were also learning about the founders, who are these mythic figures. They're almost godlike to the people in this current time. They understood scribing in a way that the people of this current time could never fathom the power that they had, basically. And so in this one, toward the end of the last book, there was a major discovery about scribing, more or less. And in this one, we jump right off dealing with that. And then also, most of this book is learning more about the founders. But at the same time, going back to that kind of atmosphere and environment element, there is this festival going on, this Shorefall night. And so this character is Papa Monsoon on the front, is depicted there. So we have a whole vibe going on with this setting where there are hanging lanterns everywhere and everybody's ready for this festival, and we're seeing the different houses as there's increasing conflict and as we're learning more about this magic system and the kind of problems that have been introduced here. And as we're learning much more about the founders, it all culminates in so much drama. This is such a cinematic series. That's the thing I would most get across to you, that the characters are so lively and fully realized. We have a pretty good sized cast. It's like a typical crew novel. The first one involved a heist. So we have this crew that's very tight knit, but all very different, and they kind of get at each other with little barbs and are very snarky, especially our main character Sancha. And I just love seeing their interactions and the continued momentum of those characters together. There is a really nice sapphic relationship that was kind of noted in the first book and really develops in this book. I just love everything about this. This is probably going to become one of my favorite series if it doesn't faceplant in the third novel. But everything here is so fleshed out from a world building perspective, from a character perspective, from an atmosphere perspective. The prose is, I think, very good to my taste. However, I think that's the main thing that I would get across to people looking to pick it up, is that that's really divisive. There are some choices style-wise. I would show you that there is some like talking inside of people's heads that goes on, and in order to depict that, there are some very strong style elements. So like you will get, this is not the talking in the heads, but there's a lot of italics. I know that bothers people. And there's a lot of elements where in the talking in the heads is denoted like this, where we have little like the carrots or chevrons. So you have that. There's also the fact that I realized this reading this in print that I hadn't noticed in my first read as much, or in my reread on audio. Robert Jackson Bennett likes an ellipse, which I do as well, so it doesn't really bother me, but I would say there's probably an ellipse like 1 or 2 per page through most of the book. So if that's going to bother you, it's really going to grate on you over the course of this story. So stylistically, it's going to be very divisive, I think. But I personally really like the style. I like the way that he is getting across successfully using those different italics or the italics within the carrots, that he is showing us certain different types of conversation. It's not just vocal conversation that's happening here. And I think that's integral to what's happening in the story. Yeah, so probably a new fave. Really, really enjoyed Shorefall, and I'm desperate to get into Locklands. An ebook, I'm also reading Amor, Actually, which is a collection from many authors of Latinx holiday romance short stories. And myself and Kristen from Kristinelle SFF Reader read a couple of the stories last year, and we decided to continue on this year with a couple more stories. So we picked up Only Yours by Sabrina Soule. And unfortunately, I think it was kind of a similar case with The Wedding Date. I didn't overtly hate it. It just was not to my taste. I liked the writing. Again, really enjoyed Sabrina Soule's writing. I like the choice to give us the man's perspective as the POV for the story. It's following Amor and this woman who is basically like a liaison for a professional women's soccer league, who they happen to be at this high-powered event, and it's clearly a Christmas event, and he's thinking about how he's missing his chance with her, more or less. So the whole story is a reflection of their relationship and how he wants to be with her. So I think the transition from that to them actually kind of having their romantic moment was really abrupt and sudden, and I did end up rooting for them though, so I think that was well done, but it was too short to really develop much, and the fact that we don't really see them interact very much on page, other than his reflections back on past things they've interacted about and why he likes her. I think that was probably not the best for me, but it was fine. It was a cute holiday romance mostly. So yeah, so I think we'll be reading another one in the upcoming week, and we will see how far we get into that series. I doubt we'll finish it this year, so yeah. As far as my continued reads, I have The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. We're a third of the way in, making some good progress. We've got John Shelby Spong's Biblical Literalism, a Gentile Heresy, as always, and you can see I'm tabbing it up like crazy. And Vanished Birds, made some good progress on this one this week. And then 2 that I have just barely started are The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I think I'm 2 essays into that one on audio, because everybody said audio it. And then Hot and Badgered by Shelly Laurenston. So we will see how this one goes. It's very dramatic from the start. Kind of surprising me. So that is everything I have in progress. As far as the stuff I've been watching, I think pretty much the stuff I mentioned last week is what I've finished this week. I finished up School of Chocolate, and I enjoyed it so much. I did love that, I mentioned last week how great it was that people were not actually getting eliminated. They did turn that into, okay, the guy running the school basically decided who the 2 top students were. And so they were the people that were competing to win. And then everybody else does stick around, and they are supporting the 2 people in making a big finale, basically. So I really enjoy that setup. I wish more shows were like that, because it was so much less drama and so much less drama and angst about the setup. But it was really cool to see all of the things they made. The finales, holy moly, they were so good. I have no interest in chocolate, but I enjoyed watching them make it. Then I finished up Drinkmasters as well, and that one is like a traditional competition show where people get knocked out every week, and I did enjoy that one, but less so than School of Chocolate for the obvious reason of them being knocked out. I think there was a little more drama to the individuals that were on there, like they clearly had kind of set that up, but I was very happy with who won. So yeah, mixed. I enjoyed seeing the cool different sort of like the gastro things they had to do, and really just fancy cocktails are so fascinating to me because they have all these techniques, but it's such a, it has to be liquid, obviously, so it's such a limited delivery, yet they're playing with all these different techniques to get different experience out of that. Yeah, so that was really fascinating. And then of course, Love is Blind. I finished season 1 and I'm into season 2 now. And season 1 definitely baffled me. I finished everything, including like the reunion and their follow-ups. I think the 1-year and 2-year follow-up for season 1. So I don't get it. Like how the people got so far from who they were the first couple weeks is amazing to me. But yeah, some of those people are very concerning. So season 2 has been even more dramatic. So far, I think the people held up less of the good side of themselves for a shorter period of time. They basically didn't even make it out of the pods before they were falling apart and like being disaster human beings. So yes, yeah, it's fun to watch for trashy TV. I think that's it for watching stuff. What else went on this week? Nothing really went on this week. The big thing was just a major disappointment, is that I had tickets to go to the zoo lights. They decorate the zoo with all kinds of really nice fancy light displays, and you can go at night, obviously after their normal hours. But I got rained out, so I started driving, and it was kind of drizzling a little bit at my house, and I was like, oh, this is okay. Maybe it'll mean people will not show up, and then it'll be a really empty night. That'll be great. And I got about 20 minutes down the road, because I'm a good 35, almost 40 minutes from the zoo, and ended up stranded like in complete standstill traffic because there was an accident because it was pouring rain. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna get off the highway here and just run to the post office because I needed to pick up like some boxes for shipping, and pull up to the post office. The post office had a long wait and there were no boxes out front. So I was like, okay, well, we're gonna deal with this. But I get a message from my friend that they canceled the zoo lights because of the rain. So I didn't get to go. And after I drove 20 minutes one way and wound up turning around, driving almost 20 minutes back the other way. Very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. So I'm really sad because that was the only day I could make it this week. And that was the last like warm day. It was in the 50s, and now we're back down to the highs being around freezing. So I don't even know, because next week it's going to be incredibly cold, if they're gonna have to cancel again, because it's gonna be like single digits Fahrenheit, so that's pretty significantly below freezing. And then yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to go. This would have been the first year I had gotten to go again since all the lockdowns and everything. But if not, that's fine. I do actually think they're having it the week after Christmas, so I may try to go then. But I'm bummed because it would have been really fun to like show that off on camera as well, because you could have all enjoyed that as well. But yeah, it was a real bummer. I kind of needed the night off though. I've been so tired. I've almost had a nap every day this week because I just am like dozing off when I'm reading because I'm wiped out. In part because of Cinnamon. He's been having kind of upset stomach at night, so I've been woken up a lot at night, or even just before bed. He's wanting to go out constantly. So I think we've kind of gotten that all figured out. We had a trip to the vet, I think 2 days ago, and it's not great, but it's much better than expected, where it seems like maybe he's got colitis going on, and so just digestive issues, which he already has some issues that are digestive related. So that's better than the things we were expecting with it being like an organ problem. So not great, but we're sorted. Unfortunately, it has meant like his weight is very significantly down. I think I already talked about that. And his eating has not been good. And so I'm now making him chicken and rice, and that's probably going to continue fairly indefinitely. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and see if I can find some like low-fat food that's non-prescription that he's interested in, because we've already tried all the prescription ones and those were not great, and that was kind of like, yeah, we're at the point where we probably want him to be eating more than we need to keep him on the prescription stuff. So I'm gonna try, but yeah, it's a lot of effort and energy going into that. I think that's it for my week. Otherwise, lots of presents getting wrapped and packaged and sent off in the mail. I have sent off my final package. Thank goodness. Oh my gosh. It was a lot this year. I think that was a huge stressor on top of everything with Cinnamon. So I'm glad to be done with that. All my cards are mailed, the packages are mailed. I'm done. I'm done. So that is it for me this week, I think. For recommendations, I have some odd ones. These are a little bit more like intensive to talk about, I think. So the first one is, she's going to do the talking for me, as Elle Thinks did a great video on fan fiction, but not just talking about her having recently gotten into fan fiction. So she does talk about that, but more discussing the kind of issues that authors have with fan fiction about their work, and very specifically picking apart an essay that Robin Hobb wrote about it. And so that was really neat to hear, because I'm not very attached to fan fiction at all. I don't think I've really read much, if any. And she talks about kind of the complexities of that dynamic between authors and fan fiction writers, and also the benefits and the joy of the community behind fan fiction. And so I think that was really, really good to hear, and very timely, because my other sort of recommendation, I don't know if it's a recommendation or just something to put on your radar, is that there has been a lot of controversy in general about AI art this week that has similar complexities about taking from original creators, right? This AI has to be trained on individuals' work. It goes out and kind of searches other people's work. It has to learn how to do certain styles and elements. And so it is effectively taking someone else's work who's not being credited, right? But there's a lot more to that. However, beyond the broad blow up this week about AI art, there has been a very specific bookish blow up about AI art, in that it was kind of uncovered that Tor Books has purchased stock art for their covers, which was very cheaply purchased and made, and turned out to be AI art rather than an actual artist's work. So that's in and of itself is interesting, but big time author cover was found out to be this AI art. It was a Christopher Paolini's new book, wound up being determined to be an AI art generated cover, and it's something they bought cheaply. It sounded like, from what I was seeing, that they can buy 700 plus of these images for $700 as stock photos versus their standard commission for an artist is $3,000. So the original artists that are behind the style elements of how these covers are derived are not getting anything out of this. There is no artist behind it. Once it's an AI art, it's just deriving from someone else's work, and that's an interesting conversation that we're obviously going to have increasingly, because it's going to increasingly be used. And Tor put out a statement that was a little wishy-washy. So that was not super impressive. That, you know, they kind of said, yeah, we're going to continue to build these relationships. As far as my interpretation of it, you know, it was very typical legalese of, yeah, we're going to continue to work with artists, but it doesn't sound like they're doing anything to stop or change how they engage with AI art or avoid working with AI art altogether. It sounds like that is probably going to continue to be part of what they do. And I think that's true of probably most publishing houses. They are definitely going to be looking to cut costs in any way they can, and that may mean AI art covers all over the place. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff. So I think those two discussions are very in conversation. As far as the AI art stuff, I think I will link a Reddit thread and John Scalzi's blog about that down below. There has been discussion about it all over, but I think those are the most like insightful in terms of the comments threads that you can see what's going on and the different interpretations people have about it. And then Elle Thinks video very much is talking about some of the same things, but when you're talking about an originator, an author, versus a fan artist doing this fan fiction. So yeah, really interesting discussions, and I don't know which side I come down on either element, but it's something we're gonna have to think about. So that is it for my week. Thank you so much for joining me again today, and thanks for watching. Would anyone else like to wrap my presents for me? I'm pretty sure I used up all my energy getting them piled up and getting out all the wrapping stuff. Well. I think Rue is volunteering to wrap the presents, actually, so this is gonna make my job so much easier.
Little crit.
It's a night rainbow. How weird. You heard it work? Mm-hmm. Oh, big stretch. Okay, so this is not going to be overly attractive, but I'm pretty much living for this right now. My Invisalign I have to change out every week for a new aligner, and so that means my teeth are really sore about 2 days out of the week. So I've been boiling my vegetables. I'm not big on boiled vegetables, but so this is just Bonza chickpea mac and cheese with shells and cheese, and I've been throwing in onion, mushroom, broccoli, and then topping with some pepper and Parmesan. And like, this is my go-to meal now because it's soft and doesn't hurt my teeth, and boiling the vegetables is actually not too terribly bad. The onion kind of gets some flavor into the noodles. So yeah, this is my new go-to meal.